So the first thing to talk about is Queen's Guard, which allows us to have increased HP, speed of summons, and when you summon, gain Reinforce. This is on many different Queen Bee weapons, and the Reinforce is the new addition, and the speed, and the Reinforce is this decreased damage shield I have right here. It's pretty handy. The thing to keep in count is that whenever you get attacked now, the summons will now attack the person who attacked you, which is a very nice change to every single summon, not just Queen's Guard anymore. So I don't have the Stratos Lightning Staff, so I cannot speak upon the nerfs and how much if they're needed or not. But I have seen some of the people out there doing crap tons of damage at range, so I do think it deserves at least the increased cooldown of its attacks. But on top of that, the decreased damage and the decreased coefficient on it is a lot of nerfs on it, so maybe it is pretty bad now. They kind of buffed the water, so they decreased the cooldown on Cleanse, and they decreased the cooldown on the Rune of Cleansing. But the Rune of Cleansing now has the less healing per rune usage, but it's proportional to how much they increase the cooldown for the rune. So therefore, you cleanse more, you heal the same, which could be a good set, actually. They changed Trusty Servant to make it a little bit weaker, so now we'll scale how much of the perk you have. And now they gave the perk to the handle as well. So now that if you only have one of it, it's not going to be as good. But if you have both, you're going to get a lot better of that singular servant or whatever you had. But they also removed Revel in Death from the Skull Mace and the Skull Mace handle, which didn't really make any difference anyways, because it used to heal you when your summons die, but because you only had one summon, it didn't make any difference. So the most worst nerf, in my opinion, to this entire update, of course, is Dext. Super sad. Everyone hates it because they nerfed the rev set to infinity, because they nerfed Dext specifically. Dext now has its insignificant amount of crit chance compared to 1 in 5. Now it's 1 in 15. It used to be 1 in 25, which was like 5 times worse, but now it's only 3 times worse, which means crits are now 3 times less likely, which is devastating. This also means that the rev set, which originally increases your attack speed with the amount of speed boost, is also slightly nerfed. Now, honestly, I don't see much of a difference in my attack speed here. My M1s are still really fast. But I think, honestly, because that's the limit. So it really nerfed my Healing Boy build down to the ground. The Sacred Grounds only does 5.8 healing now, which is insignificant. It is poop. It used to be 15, and it only was because of the frequency of the healing that was so good. But not being able to heal 5 per second isn't that good. But they did buff something called the Gemstone Build. What this means is that the weapon art will have a better heal depending on the cooldown. So therefore, a weapon art that heals that has a longer cooldown. And unfortunately, there's not really anything that does that, except for this one in Cleanse. And Cleanse has a shorter cooldown than this one. So for the first time ever, it is not worth playing High Elf for healing if you go in this direction, which doesn't make any sense. Changed the Cursed Bark, which is something that I use specifically, so that whenever you get hit, you have a chance to inflict a debuff on the opponent. And I'm gonna see how long that takes for me to inflict that debuff. Oh, there we go, he got fire there. So now he's supposed to inflict that stun? I don't see that stun. And considering I have 0.3 per spark, and he's like never getting this debuff. Oh, I got another one. There we go, there's another one. So this nerf, the Darkening Hex nerf, will basically nerf a certain build people use, which allowed them to spam lots and lots of debuffs, like Flaming Poison and such. And because what it does is it increases the strength of a debuff. And now they limited to only be able to do each debuff 10 times. So although the amount isn't changed, you can no longer spam Darkening Hex on multiple different debuffs to be able to burn Queen Bee to death, like some people did. They also buffed the Blue Flame Sword, the big one, which the Caterized ability, which would originally increase damage instead of add flame for each of the chances to add flame. It would also scale on the potency of the burn. So this has got to be one of the biggest buffs in history, because this set now has a 100% chance to activate on a crit and rage lasts 2.5 as long. This means that once you get a crit, you activate rage, which is good on a binded slot. This means that you can infinitely get tons and tons of rage every single time. And although it's a brief rage state, it's now upgraded because the new buff allows rage to last 2.5 times as long, which is overpowered when you combine it with other things which have rage. So this also can be used for another build, which I might make in the future. This next buff is minor in its ability, because it basically chances the mash flow proc chance. And what marsh flow, sorry, there's a typo there. It means the finish has a chance to apply regen, and then regen grants bonus damage. So this was on a swamp roller, which is mainly used for a dexterity physical build, which isn't really a thing in the game, which might become one in the future. So one of my least favorite nerfs is the one with the Starbringer. So the Starbringer now has a chance to fall on an M2 attack instead of 100%. So previously, we should be able to do an M2 attack and a star would fall for every single hit we do. So this would be overpowered for like this attack, where it would be like 10 things, and there'd be 10 things from the sky. But as you can see there, only 2 stars fell out of my 10 attacks. And when my build focuses on every single time a an explosion happens, a less amount of hits is a less amount of damage, significantly. So they kind of nerfed that, which is very annoying. And look at that. As soon as I finished editing the video, yes, this is like that late at night, he added like a few more balance changes. So I'm going to quickly go over this right in front of my computer right here. So, it's going over how Steam Golem was constantly applying more damage to each of the chain lightning. So that just basically removes the scaling from chain lightning, which is fair. And then they had the Bombarda proc chance from 15 to 20%, which is very nice. This was increased on the build, which I was explaining about earlier, which is nice that they reverted that build. And then they also have the Stratus Core proc chance increased, which, like I said in my video, the nerf was a little bit harsh. So at least they lightened that load on the people who are using the Stratus Core. Now to go over some of the easy changes, which I enjoy a lot. The first thing they did is they prevented everyone being kicked from a dungeon if one person couldn't load in, which is very nice. Appreciate it. And they also made blocking reduce your stun a lot, which is also very, very, very nice. That's pretty much all of the buffs that they added that was mentionable. Now, keep in mind, guys, that this game is very unbalanced right now, and the creators are doing their best to balance out every single weapon. So even though you spent 4 hours, 5 hours getting all the equipment together to get the most recent meta, keep in mind that I've done the same thing too. Many people have done the same thing too. And you should not expect a meta to stay the same, especially when you're doing 2,000 or even 10,000 in some cases damage per second. Like the rev set. The rev set now does about 200 damage per second compared to the previous like 600, which is fair. That is fair. Bring it down to 3, that's pretty good. And yeah, that's about it. I'm going to see you guys next video. Bye-bye.